In Luke chapter 19 and verses 41 and 42, it tells us that Jesus drew near the city and that when he saw the city, he wept over it. And he cried because the things that would bring them peace was hidden from their eyes. This is actually the second time in Scripture where we see Jesus weeping. And what has provoked this pathos is his heart for the city and the people in it. And he says that they had missed the moment. And missing that moment would not just affect them, it would affect their children, and it would have a ripple effect even into the future. And I believe that Jesus still weeps over our cities because we should be weeping over the loss of its peace. Need I say that we're in the midst of a global pandemic where almost 200,000 people are dead in the U.S. alone in just a matter of 7 months. We make up 5% of the world's population, and yet the United States has more than 20% of the world's coronavirus deaths. This pandemic has had dire effects on unemployment and the educational system. And with more people confined to home, domestic abuse has increased. Divorces are on the rise. All of this is complicated by the senseless killings of black men and women by law enforcement. Our cities are in protest. We have a racist president who promotes violence and division in the country. Murder rate is up across the nation. Climate change has wildfires burning out of control. People are stressed and depressed, and it's reflected in an interesting finding. Dentists are reporting increases in teeth grinding and jaw clenching. Things are in chaos. And there's a song that was written 50 years ago, 1970, as a commentary on our social woes. And this song is still relevant today. It's the Temptations song, Ball of Confusion. I want you to listen to the lyrics.
People moving out, people moving in. Why? Because of the color of the skin. Run, 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 but you sure can't hide. Eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Vote for me and I'll set you free. Rap on, brother, rap on. Well, the only person talking about love thy brother is the preacher. And it seems nobody's interested in learning but the teacher. Segregation, termination, demonstration, integration, aggravation, humiliation, obligation to our nation, ball of confusion. Woo-hoo-hoo. That's what the world is today. Hey, oh. Sell appeals and at an all-time high. Young folks walking around with their heads in the sky. And the beat goes on. Evolution, revolution, gun control, sound and soul. Shooting rockets to the moon, growing up too soon. Politicians say they're gonna tax, it's gonna solve everything. And the band played on. Round and around we go. Where the world's headed, nobody knows. Oh, can't you see me talking to you? It's a ball of confusion, yeah. Woo-hoo. That's what the world is today. Hey, Fear in the air, tension everywhere. Unemployment rising fast, the people's necking down the gas. The only safe place to live is an Indian reservation, and the band played on. Eve of destruction, tax deduction, city inspector, bill collector, closing demand. Population out of hand, suicide, too many bills, and the band played on. Hippies moving to the hills, people all over the world are shouting, "In the war." Round and around we go. Where the world's headed, nobody knows. Oh, quick, can't you see me talking to you with a ball of confusion? Yeah. Hey, that's what the world is today. Hey, ball of confusion. Yeah, that's what the world is today. Hey, oh.
So where's Jesus in all this chaos? Well, I can assure you, He's right here with us. Many of us are like the biblical character Jacob. He was experiencing major life changes. He was leaving home. Actually, he was running from a bad situation. And what lay ahead of him was full of uncertainty. And then as he was on his journey, night fell, and Jacob made the decision to camp under the open sky. And when he fell asleep, the scripture tells us that he had a dream. And when Jacob awakened from his sleep, this is what Jacob realized in Genesis 28:16. He said, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it." The Lord was there the whole time, but Jacob only realized it in hindsight. That's why Jesus wept over the city. Luke 19:44, he says, because the people did not know the time of their visitation. In other words, they missed the presence of Jesus. I don't want to miss His presence. I don't want to miss the time of visitation because I'm so consumed with the chaos. And yes, in the chaos we look for Him. But many times it's actually the chaos that keeps us from seeing Him. Jacob wasn't aware of the Lord's presence until he went to sleep. It took sleep to still his body and shut out the noise. And for some of us, we only become aware of the presence of the Lord when things are quiet. But by that time, you may have missed His presence. So we've got to learn to discern His presence, even in the chaos. And we've got to pay close attention long enough to realize that He is present. Let me explain to you what I mean. You've heard the story of Moses and the burning bush. We refer to it as the miracle of the burning bush. Well, I want you to reconsider something about that, because it was actually less of a miracle and more of a test. Moses was tending sheep on the backside of the mountain, and there was a bush that was beginning to burn. And Moses had probably seen a lot of brush fires before in that arid climate. So the question really is, how long would Moses have had to watch that bush burn before he could know whether or not it was being consumed? It wasn't about the miracle, because Moses would see a whole lot of miracles in his future. Matter of fact, God would use him to turn his rod into a snake. God would use him to divide the seas so that people could walk across on dry land. So God wasn't trying to impress him with miracles. God wanted to know if Moses could pay attention long enough to recognize him. And Moses paid attention long enough to have an encounter with the Lord. And in both Moses's and Jacob's encounter, they realized the presence of the Lord. And then the Lord said the same thing to the both of them. The Lord said to Moses in Exodus 3:12, he said, I will certainly be with you. And then he told Jacob in Genesis 28:15, he says, I am with you. I will keep you wherever you go, and I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. And guess what? The Lord is telling us the same thing that he told Jacob and Moses, that he is with us, and that he will keep us, and that he will not leave us until he has done what he has promised us. Now, the question is, are we going to be like Moses and pay attention? Or are we going to be like Jacob and only realize his presence in hindsight? I want you to notice something about Jacob's dream. In Genesis 28 and verses 12 and 13, here's what it says about his dream. It says that he saw a ladder that was set up on earth, and its top reached the heaven. And it says in verse 13, and behold, the Lord stood above it. So, I want to ask you a question. Think about it. Where did Jacob see the Lord? It was at the top of the ladder in heaven. But now listen, where did the Lord declare himself to be? He said, I am with you. And see, we celebrate the Lord as being in the realm of heaven. And we're looking for him outside of the chaos. But the Apostle John tells us something different about Jesus. In John 1:14, he says, the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. I love the way the Message Bible puts it. It says he moved into the neighborhood. In Hebrews 4:15, it affirms that Jesus can be touched with our feelings and our confusion and our infirmities. And see, that's why he's able to intercede for us, because he is in the chaos with us. The reason that Jesus weeps over the city, it's not just because of the chaos. What really breaks his heart is when we miss his visitation. You see, we're weeping because of the difficulty and the suffering. But Jesus weeps because we don't recognize that he is in the difficulty with us. And many times the reason we don't recognize his presence in all of this stuff is because we think of Jesus as being outside of the difficulty and outside of the chaos. And we want him to come and get us and to bring us out of the difficulty and suffering. But what you've got to know about Jesus is that he enters the suffering with us. Isaiah 53 verses 3 and 4, it tells us this. It says that he became acquainted with grief. It says that he took our infirmities and that he carried our sorrows. And see, this is the fellowship of suffering that the Apostle Paul speaks of in Philippians 3:10. Jesus entered into our chaos and into our confusion and into our suffering so that you and I could enter into his power and into his victory. So stop looking for Jesus outside of the chaos, because he is with you and he will keep you. And remember what he promised? He said, I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. So Where is Jesus in the chaos? He's right there with you.